Hey fellow Vault Dwellers, it's Angry Turtle back from the public test server, and in this video I will try to compile all the remaining changes in regards to combat balancing, legendary effects, reworks, in regards to boss fight and changes in this department, some weapon tweaks, what's better, what's worse. Like, I would try to get to the point about everything. As well, you can see, I mean, the new location is currently empty, but it's part of the next update. So this will be some kind of a quest line. Milepost 0 related to the caravans. Really cool location, so far empty. Now, about the changes. Oh, as you can probably see, I'm a noob here, running in excavator power armor, and there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, a very severe bug is present, so I'm glad we do have public test server that ate my main character, so that's the best I can do now. So let's start from legendary effects. What's changing? I already did the part about legendary crafting, so that's already covered in a separate video, but about the legendary effects, some are basically new, some are slightly adjusted. So let's take a closer look on those that did change. So first, medics. Medics is completely new. Now your attacks will heal friendly targets by 5% of health. So it's the same effect like if you would use a weapon with fire damage and friendly fire perk. But now you will not need a friendly fire perk, just a medic's weapon will be a healer weapon. So wherever you roll medics, it's no longer worthless. You can use this particular weapon for healing purposes, which gives so much more opportunities in here for the healing of other players, friendly NPCs, and so on. I really like this change. After that, what's changing? Quad. It's a downside being added. Minus 30% to reload speed, so every quad weapon will be reloading slower, which is unfortunate. And lastly, from the prefixes, vampire. It's the same effect, but now it can be triggered only once per shot, regardless how many projectiles your weapon is firing, how many explosions, and so on. So if you have vampire on a shotgun or on a regular single shot weapon, the healing effect is the same. Luckily, it still does stack with following shots, so if you have really fast firing weapon, vampire is kicking in very strong. But if you are healing like insane with shotguns, this will no longer work. It's only once per shot now that this effect can trigger. About the second star effects, they are mostly unchanged, but on the test server, we currently can equip explosive effect on almost any weapon, including Gauss weapons and energy weapons. Although in case of energy weapons, it's not currently working or doing anything. But it's interesting. So it's looked like maybe explosive weapons will be available on every weapon. At least it feels like it may be possible. Other effects unchanged. And finally, for the third star, there is more options. There is more special, like any special can be added. And it's +2 and not +1 like it used to be. You can have agility and of course, yes, intelligence if you want to farm experience. All of it is in here. Other effects, the same. About the armor, the effects are not being changed. So those are the changes to legendary effects. Now the combat is receiving a huge changes. If you wonder when this new location is, that's milepost 0 down here on the map, far down. And yes, dangerous pastimes, it's fixed and running again on public test server, but now the combat changes, the big combat changes. So first, you probably notice I'm carrying a minigun. Yes, there are some really positive changes in regards to minigun and other low damage per bullet but fast firing weapons. Look at the damage when I hit the head. It's like 4 times the damage to the torso, so it feels way more snappy. And in case of minigun, even on this like Partial build, not done. Look at that. You can annihilate enemies if you get a headshot. Basically, hitting a weak spot is a huge difference now. It does matter. It was greatly improved. So the weak spot does matter. That like hitting the center of the mass, I do damage, but not so great. If I do hit the head, I'm getting hundreds per bullet with a minigun. That's not even great. Okay, quick look. That's kind of my build I'm running in here. As you can notice, it's a poor man build. A lot of perks is missing. And the minigun itself, not great. It's furious damage while aiming. But it already feels so much better. How the weak spot works, now to give you a really short answer, it helps you penetrate through enemy armor in addition to bonus damage if you hit a weak spot. On the live game version, hitting a head on the super mutants will just give me twice the amount of the damage, regardless of the weapon or armor and so on. Now it's a little bit more variety. For example, if I would use the plasma caster, the difference will not be so huge because this is already high damage per shot. It's still better than on live, so if I hit the torso like 260, head is 600, so over twice the damage. But you probably noticed that minigun was like 4 times the damage when hitting the head. So less damage per shot your weapon is doing, the more you will feel the improvement in regards to the headshot. Now, the cremator. A lot of question about this weapon and changes to the dot itself. Yes, it did receive slight nerf to its dot. Keep in mind, not a perfect cremator in here, and not my build. My build is not perfect either. But it can still kill, and look at that. Did you notice the health bars? This change I love. This change I love. You finally know, after you shoot enemy, if the dot is gonna finish it off or not, and exactly how much damage from the dot you are getting. So look at this super mutant. Shooting, it will die. You see, I can see exactly that the dot will finish it off. So I know I don't need to waste a shot. The other one is not, so I shoot again. So I can carry on. I know they are already dead, even though still running. So this change is amazing. I love this particular change. This change is my favorite. So the combat overall feels way more snappy and way more intuitive. You feel like there is way more benefit to hitting a weak spot, and dot makes more sense as you can tell how much damage it's gonna do. So I like those changes. I generally like those changes. Unfortunately, there is a little bit less dot with the cremator. Not a huge change. I cannot really compare it to the live as my main character is broken on public test servers. So I don't have perfect comparison. But it's not too bad. I tested it on Expedition as well. Enemies on Expedition still die quite easily from the dot. Some of them seems to be dying a little bit slower than it used to be. So they did something to them. But they still all die. So that's the most important news. Now about the bosses. There are the changes to the boss fights. What's important to know about the boss fights? The damage reduction that those bosses had have been basically removed and replaces with them having more health. The tier in this video is going over the details with exact stats of each boss if you are interested. I will give you TLDR how it will feel when you will be fighting the bosses after the update. So first, if you are a non-VATS build and you are always aiming for center of the mass of the boss, it will feel about the same as it is now. You will not really notice any difference. Maybe you will doing slightly more damage that you may notice. Then, if you are non-VATS but you are aiming for a weak spot, you are trying to hit the weak spot, then you will notice significant improvement to your damage. You will be doing about twice as much damage as you are doing now during the boss fights. Now, if you are a VATS critical build and you are used to melting bosses on live game, is that how it works? Then after the update will drop, you will notice that your damage is significantly lower as those VATS criticals, even though actually they do still work exactly the same after the changes, but bosses basically have more health rather than damage reduction, so you have nothing to bypass, you just need to melt more health, therefore you will feel that you lost the damage on boss fights. You will do exactly the same damage on all other enemies, mini bosses, regular enemies. On the big bosses, VATS critical builds will do less. Non-VATS builds aiming for weak spot will do more. That's the TLDR, what is changing with bosses. And that being said, let me know what you think about those changes. Is this the correct direction Bethesda is taking with weapon rebalance, combat rebalance, and how the combat overall works in Fallout 76? And that being said, thank you all for watching, and see you all in the next one.